Hey, this is Jill Simonello, and I am the managing editor with Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk. And this week we are checking out the 2021 Buick Envision. Now, this is all new for this model year, and Buick has done a really good job of making this look a lot sharper. So in this video, we're going to check out the engine. We are going to look at the design inside and out, and we're going to talk about what I like and what I don't like, because there always has to be a few of those. So let's take a closer look right now. First up, let's talk about the engine. This will come with a 2.0 liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine that delivers 228 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. And what I want to say is, this is a pretty good engine. Now, it's nothing special. It's not going to make your heart do flip-flops as you're accelerating onto the highway, but it gets the job done, and you don't feel like you're puttering along. So you'll be able to get to 65, 70 in a fairly good clip. So I think it does well, but like I said, it's nothing that's going to make your heart skip. It is smooth, seamless power, and I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked it. One thing to know here is that this is the only engine available with this vehicle. So if you're hoping for something that might give you a little more power, you're not going to get it on the Envision. But again, it does fairly well. So while we have this engine compartment open, let's look at how it is laid out. First, I want to point out the dipstick isn't really obvious when you just look at the engine compartment here. Now, it's actually a little bit hidden, and it is in front of the engine, kind of under this cover here, but you can see it's right here. So a little bit weird, but not cumbersome or uncomfortable. Still easy to access. In terms of the rest of the layout, you have your battery jack right here and your washer fluid right here. So everything is very easy to reach and access, even for somebody my size. Let's take a quick look at the exterior of the 2021 Buick Envision, because I have to tell you, when it first pulled up in front of my house, I thought it looked a lot like a Chevrolet Blazer. I think the lines are a lot sharper. The headlights, the emblem, the grille design, the strong lines that you see surrounding the vehicle, that is all new for this model year, and it makes a huge difference. If you look at pictures of the previous generation of the Buick Envision, it looks a little bit snubby and almost like a tennis shoe or something. I don't know what that design was, but it did not do anything for the Envision. And now it looks like a true luxury vehicle with a lot of sharp lines, a lot of nice lighting features and signatures, and I think it looks really good. So the test vehicle also has the Sport Touring package, which will include design elements like the 20-inch dark gloss wheels, you have roof rails, and you have this darker trim. You will also have body colored door handles, and another place you will notice a difference is on the grille, where it is a little bit blacked out. Even without this package, again, I think that Buick has done a great job making this vehicle super attractive and bringing it into 2021. Moving to the interior of the Buick Envision, you can see that Buick has done a great job here as well with the design. They've cleaned up a lot of the cheap plastic that ended up on the center stack of the previous generation. This looks much more streamlined and attractive, with the piano black accents and your separate HVAC controls here that are laid out in a horizontal pattern. I think it looks really good. I think they've done a great job with it, and it definitely looks much more luxurious, much more up level, and really just generally attractive. Now, let me zero in on something here that could end up being a bit of a trigger point for people, and that is going to be the gear shift. So to me, it reminds me of the gear shift that we saw on the Tahoe and the Yukon, so the GMC Yukon and the Chevrolet Tahoe, except it was up here on the dash in a vertical pattern. So similar to those, you've got your push for park, your push for neutral, and your push for your manual drive mode. Now for drive and for reverse, however, it's still a push, but it's not push here. It's kind of a push pull there, or here. Now the interesting thing with reverse is the fact that it's got little nubs on that, so you can instantly tell if you are putting the vehicle in reverse just by how it feels. And I'll tell you, that's actually a little bit prickly. It kind of irritates my finger, but it is nice that you can tell the difference. Like if you're just looking down and you're trying to grab something here, you know whether you're going to be going into drive or reverse based on how it feels. So I think that was well done. The only thing that could be a potential problem is, man, if you spill something in here, like, how do you clean it? And if anybody's going to eat in their car, just that is a crumb receptacle. I don't know, maybe people don't eat in their cars anymore, take road trips, but I occasionally do. And I'm sure that crumbs and water or coffee would find its way into this gear shift. And to me, that is a potential problem. But I like how it looks. I'm not particularly bothered with how it operates, but I don't know. Potential pain point. I would love to know what you think in the comments below. What do you think of the gear shift? So the other thing that I thought was really interesting is the extreme driver orientation of this center display here. I had my husband in the car the other day, and he was kind of bothered by the fact that it was not at all orientated towards him when he was trying to change the radio station. And me, I thought that was a message from the universe that he was not supposed to be messing with my music. Another thing to point out here is that this does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and it's wireless. So you can pair to the system without having to connect to the the USB jack down here, and I like that. However, interesting to note, there is no wireless charging, at least not in this vehicle. It's available, but I have the Essence trim and this one doesn't have it. However, I will say that I don't know that it bothers me that there is no wireless charging in addition to wireless CarPlay. I know the reverse is not true, but this, I mean, I very rarely need to charge my phone when I'm in the vehicle, frankly. It's already charged up. So if I do need to charge it, wiring in to me is not a big deal, but being able to just bring my phone into the car and have it automatically sync to CarPlay, I like that. I think the interior materials are pretty decent. This is not plastic per se, but it's a little bit of a rubbery material, so it's not leather. But it doesn't feel bad to the touch. The seats have some nice squishy padding and support. And if you've watched anything that I've done previously and how I feel about the seats in General Motors, it doesn't apply here. The Buick seats are probably the most comfortable seats you will find in a General Motors vehicle. I like them. They've got good padding, good support, good lumbar support, and good thigh support. They're not too long. They're not too short. I all around, Buick has done a really good job with the seats and the seat comfort in the Buick Envision. Final thing I would like to point out and check out is the digital display. Now, don't get all worried here that I'm only getting 25.1 miles per gallon. Actually, I think that's probably pretty good considering the fact that I've spent a lot of time idling in this vehicle. So the digital display here can't really be adjusted that much. And it's just this bit here that's digital. You've got analog gauges on either side. And then if you use this right here, you can kind of go through your page options and it'll display, different items depending on what you are wanting to have displayed there. I generally just like to keep my trip information there, so I know what my fuel economy is, I know how far I've driven. Overall, though, I think that Buick has done an excellent job with this interior. I think it looks good, and the redesign, totally on the money. So before we get into what I like and what I don't like about this vehicle, I want to talk a little bit about driving impressions. And overall, I find this to be a pretty comfortable driving position. I will say, in terms of the visibility, I do feel like I sit a little bit low. I wish I could pump the seat up just a little bit higher. And the belt line, again, is really high. So I feel like a little bit like an old lady as I'm trying to see out the window. So that also calls to mind another thing to point out is this is really a little bit of a blind spot for me, and maybe somebody who's sitting back a little bit further wouldn't have the problem. But if I'm getting ready to go through a light, like I am right now, just turned green, you know, I'm always searching around this and the side mirror right here to make sure that there's nobody who is going to be coming at me running a red light, that there's no pedestrian in the crosswalk as I'm getting ready to perhaps make a turn. So this and this combined for me are a little bit of a blind spot. Now, in terms of ride and handling, I think this does really well. So we're getting ready to come up on a couple of speed bumps here, and you don't feel this huge kerthunk, kerthunk. It's pretty smooth over the bumps, and the Chicago speed bumps are probably almost as long as your car. Like, you can get both wheels on this at the same time. So yeah, they're both wheels on. But so I think that this is pretty smooth and solid over bumps. I think that it has a nice amount of cushion and dampening when you come down over the other side. I've hit a lot of potholes because Chicago, and I think that it does really well over those as well. When you get on the highway, it is very smooth, very solid, very planted. It feels a little bit heavy, which I think, especially on the highway, isn't necessarily a bad thing. But what I really love about the driving and the dynamics is when you pump it over into sport mode, the throttle response gets just a little bit faster, the exhaust gets just a little bit throatier, and I feel like the vehicle becomes a little bit more nimble. So my driving preference, especially with my aggressive driving style, is going to be putting it into sport mode and feeling that just more immediate, funner response when driving, and you know, especially on the highway. Overall, I think ride and handling is really good. I think it's smooth, solid, quiet. I mean, I'm driving around a city and it's pretty quiet, and you know, I like it. It's fine. I don't know what to say other than that, because it does everything that you need it to do and then some, and it's just not anything that is going to wow you. Now it's time to get into what I like about the 2021 Buick Envision. And the first thing I would like to point out is I really like the kick-activated liftgate. If you've seen some other things that I've done, I'm not always lucky hitting the kick-activated point. I try under the badge, I try under the side, I try here, I try there, I sweep my foot under, I, you know, do a quick kick, I do a slow kick, and inevitably it doesn't work for me 50% of the time. However, what Buick has done, and I think this is a really good thing, and I think all automakers should do this if they're going to offer a kick-activated liftgate, or trunk for that matter. There are kick-activated trunks. They should put a little light emblem, like Buick does, shining down to show you, oh, this is where your foot goes. I really like that and appreciated it on this vehicle, because I didn't have to guess. I didn't have to futz around. I didn't have to try 3 times before I figured out where it was, and I didn't have to read the manual either. It was very obvious, and I am incredibly thankful that it was just there. So that is the first thing that I really liked about the 2021 Buick Envision. Another thing I really like about the Envision is the overall quietness of the cabin. So Buick likes to do something that they call quiet tuning. And in addition to some sound deadening materials, they actively do sound canceling. So you don't hear a lot of the ambient noise that's happening outside the vehicle. And, you know, I live in the city. It tends to be pretty noisy. And overall, I've found that it has been very quiet inside the cabin, and obviously very easy to do video because I don't have a lot of loud noises out there. The other thing that comes along with this quietness of the cabin is the overall sound quality of a phone call. So I always call my husband whenever I have a test vehicle, and I try to ask him, okay, would you give this, what would you give this as a 1 out of 10? And invariably he's like, yeah, I would give this a 7. I'd give this a 7. I'd give this a 7. I'm like, you can't give every vehicle a 7. He gave this one a 7.5. However, he did say that the sound quality of this vehicle was better than anything that I had driven recently. I'm like, you can't give it a 7.5 if it's better than everything I've driven. So I'm going to give this like an 8 or a 9 based on his feedback, because he said when I called him through the Bluetooth connection that you couldn't hear the HVAC. I was driving on the highway. You couldn't hear any wind noise. You couldn't hear any tire noise, and nothing sounded muffled. So I was clear, and he could hear all of my words perfectly enunciated, and that is not always the case with various systems. So I'm gonna certainly give this more than a 7.5 because he said this was the best thing that he'd heard recently. With the overall interior quietness, you get really good sound quality when you are making a phone call through the vehicle system. So 2 thumbs up on the overall quietness of this vehicle. Another thing I really like about the Buick Envision, I already alluded to in my driving impressions, but that is the sport mode. It's just a little button right here below the cup holders. It increases the overall sporty feel of the vehicle. Throttle response increases, you know, the RPMs rev a little higher, and it just generally feels a little bit more responsive when you have it in the sport mode. So cruising on the highway, not doing anything aggressive, leave it in the tour mode. Doing a little bit of aggressive city driving, planning on passing, bump it over into sport mode. I should point out there are also paddle shifters on this vehicle, so you can manually adjust your gears as well. I don't know how I feel about that on an SUV, but there they are. Another thing that I like about the 2021 Buick Envision is this infotainment touchscreen. First off, you don't really have to press hard in order to make it work. I'm just doing a very light swipe, and my fingers are always cold, yet the screen has picked up my finger sensitivity every time. You know, I like this menu down here with, you know, you can easily access some of your climate controls, navigation, your phone, and your music. And again, everything is pretty easy to reach and swipe and touch for the driver. So I like everything about that. So one more thing that I would like to point out about this here is this is customizable. So, you know, you've got your screen here that shows, you know, the map, your music, and whether or not your phone is connected. But once you go over into your menu items, this can be adjusted. So what do you use the most? What are you going to look at the most on your vehicle? And you can put it here, and it's really easy to do. So say you're an Android Auto person, not an Apple CarPlay person, you just press, hold, and I'm going to take it over, and I'm gonna just drop it right there. So you can adjust where you put things just by press, hold, drop. So I like that. I like that it's easy and intuitive, and it doesn't make you do a lot of work to adjust that. So overall, another like. This infotainment screen is attractive and easy to use. Finally, rounding up my like list is going to be the camera. So you see there was a menu item on the home screen that I could press to bring this up. And so that's when you're in park or when you're moving forward and maybe you want to see what happens when you're pulling into your space, make sure you're centered. But look at all of these views. I love the capability of the views that you have here. So here I press the button, it's showing out my front of the vehicle, and then it's showing my around view here. But if I want to look at the back, you know, you just press that. So you can toggle between front and back there. You can look at your sides, so you can make sure you're not going to be scuffing your wheels. You can look directly down on top of the vehicle. Now this is super helpful pulling into my garage to make sure that I am clearing the actual garage door. And you can do the same, you know, looking top down at the back to make sure that I'm not going to run over any cords or hit anything that might be behind the vehicle. So you keep the around view, but then it just gives you a little bit more of a detailed look at what's going on around your vehicle. So, you know, if you don't like the around view, you can always get rid of it, but personally, I really like it. The other thing I'd like to point out with this camera is the overall clarity of the picture. I recently had the Lincoln Nautilus, and I was incredibly disappointed by the clarity of the image. You know, this is a nice HD image, and it shows up really well at night and during the day, and it looks great, and you know, it's not fuzzy or pixelated or anything like that. So the last thing on my like list is this camera. Now it is time to get into the things that I do not like, and this first thing is a bit of a biggie for me, and that is the HVAC system. Now, I'm always cold. I am always cold. I will put the heat on when it is 80 degrees outside, and I will very often put it on high heat when it's 80 degrees outside. Don't ask, just don't ask. It drives my husband crazy. But needless to say, I spend a lot of time putting the HVAC system on high heat. And what I noticed in this vehicle, it has an automatic climate control system, but when you have it on auto and in high heat, you turn the car on and it immediately blasts you with cold air. There are a lot of vehicles out there. I will have it on high heat. I will put it on automatic climate control, and it doesn't blast me with anything until the engine warms up. Then it sends the hot air my way. So I found it really annoying that I had it on automatic climate control and it immediately was blasting me with cold air. Now, when I posted this video, you know, I posted a video on TikTok, everybody was like, well, everybody knows you need to have it set to, you know, 1 degree below high, or you need to turn off the, you know, this, or you need to do that. Well, I tried all of those things, and for me, in this vehicle, it did not work. In automatic climate control, it was automatically blasting me with cold air, and I didn't like it. So I ended up turning the system off until I saw that the engine was warm, and then I turned it back on. To me, that completely defeats the purpose of an automatic climate control system. Call me crazy. Now, the next thing on my do not like list is probably maybe petite person specific or small-handed person specific. I don't know. But the turn signal wand stock, I don't know, wand stock, what do you call it, is far away from my fingers. And it's further away from my fingers than I felt in other vehicles. So when I have my hands on the wheel, rather than being able to just, you know, flip out my fingers and, you know, hit the turn signal stock, I have to, you know, kind of like angle my hand funny and then stick it out to be able to turn the turn signal on. Now, obviously that's something that I would get used to, but it was a little bit weird. And at first, when I got in, I kept like going to hit the turn signal and I was like, wait, where's it at? Where's it at? So it just, I don't know. I didn't like it. And I haven't noticed that on other vehicles. Most feel like they're a little bit closer to my hand, so I just, you know. So, again, could be something specific to my size, but didn't like it. Another thing on the do not like list is actually kind of the way the center stack is oriented. Now, I alluded to it before that it is very driver focused, but that means it's kind of passenger exclusive. Excluded, I guess, is the better word. Passenger excluded. And well, the driver, definitely this works for me. I thought it was great. I could reach everything very well, and I liked the orientation, and I didn't even notice that it was so weirdly situated until I was taking pictures in the back seat. And then I looked at it and I thought, oh, that's really heavily tilted towards the driver. And this is an SUV, so you're probably going to be carrying a front passenger, as well as back passengers frequently. And your front passenger is going to have a hard time accessing the things on this screen. And yesterday I took my husband to the grocery store and I'm driving along and he's trying to change the radio station and he was totally getting all up in my space, and it just kind of bothered me while I was driving that like his hand was kind of like bumping into mine while my hand was on the wheel. And he's just like, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. And I'm like, okay, I get it. And as I mentioned earlier, I think that's the universe's way of saying, keep your hands off my music. He doesn't like my music, so he was messing with my music. But I don't know, it just, for an SUV, this just seems like a little bit of an awkward orientation. I get that it's supposed to look sporty, and it does, but I don't know how well this works for a flow, especially if you're going to have somebody in the passenger seat frequently. So I'm kind of giving it a kind of a sideways thumb. As a driver, I think it works really well, but your passengers are going to hate it. Now, the last two things on my do not like list are kind of emblematic of my problem that I have with Buick in general. And that is they tend to take a little bit more of a German everything's an option approach. And while they don't make everything an option, they do finally have standard safety features on the Envision, so including automatic emergency braking and lane keep assist. But some of the features that they make optional just kind of piss me off. For example, if you want paint that's a different color than white, it's an option, and it's going to cost you around $500. And that bothers me. So if you see a lot of white Buick Envisions driving around, you'll know why. People didn't want to fork out the extra money to pay for an actual color. I just, even when you go all the way up on the top tier trim, you're still paying for the paint. I get that a lot of paint is going to be special and it takes a while to coat it and paint it, and there's metallic and glass things in it, but this is a Buick. This is not an Aston Martin. It doesn't take $300 or 300 hours to paint this car like it does an Aston Martin. So why are you charging me extra for this paint? Give me more color options. Like, okay, if you want to charge extra for your metallic, that's great. But give me more paint color options that aren't special. I just want a blue car. Why can't I have a blue car and not pay extra for it? That bothers me. And you will see that a lot on Buick vehicles. It's annoying. The other thing that I find annoying is you get a lot of up-level safety technology. Like I said, automatic emergency braking is standard, and lane keep assist is standard. But adaptive cruise control is an option. And not only is it an option, but it is not an option that you can get on the bottom two trims. It is only available as an option, I think it's $1,700 as a part of a package, on the Avenir trim. If a Toyota Corolla makes adaptive cruise control standard, why can't a vehicle that's going to cost me about $40,000 have adaptive cruise control? I don't get it. I don't like it. And in case you haven't noticed, I'm a little bit fired up about it. It makes me angry. So I really would like adaptive cruise control to be standard, or at the very least, optional on every trim. And you do have cruise control, and that's great. I was playing around with it, and it has, like, again, the lane keep functionality, so I find it weird. And I'm going to end my rant there and close off the things that I do not like about the Buick Envision. They could be make it or break it items. Maybe they're things you don't care about, but obviously they were things that kind of got under my skin a little bit. In summary, I really liked, but I didn't love the Buick Envision. I think that it is a perfectly fine vehicle, and there wasn't anything that I hated about it, but there was just nothing special either. There was no wow factor. There was nothing that I looked at and was like, oh my gosh, that is a must-have thing. But if you're looking for something that is quiet, that has some luxury features, and that is actually pretty comfortable for a GM vehicle, you could do far worse than the Buick Envision. So, thanks for watching, and I will see you down the road.